Good morning, my dear students. Today, pollination is going to be the topic for our discussion. What is pollination? The transfer of pollen grain from an anther to the stigma of a flower is called as pollination. See, the word pollination has come from the word pollen grain. Has come from the word pollen grain. Pollen grain has given rise to the word pollination. From the word pollen grain, you got pollination. Now, why there should be pollination? Now, you know very well that in the plants are always stationary. One plant cannot move towards another plant for the purpose of reproduction, as it is in the case of the plant or animal. These poor organisms are always stationary and they live in only one plant. Now, if they are restricted to one place, how the sexual reproduction can take place between the two? Because we know that sexual reproduction is the meeting of the male and the female. Now here, actually the male reproductive unit, the so-called pollen grain, should be able to reach the stigmatic surface, which is of a feminine in origin, and then only the fertilization can take place. So the transfer of a pollen grain from the anther to the stigmatic surface of the flower is called as pollination. Now, how this is taking place is what we are going to study in a very detailed way in this class. See the definition? It's a transfer of pollen grains to the stigma of the pistil. Now, I have not told you it is the transfer of the pollen grain to the stigma of which flower. It could be to the same flower, it could be to another flower, or it could be to a flower of a different plant, different species. It could be in any way. This transfer can take place in any way. Okay. So depending on that, I am going to divide the pollination into many categories: self-pollination, cross-pollination, autogamy, allogamy, geitonogamy, xenogamy. Different type of pollinations are there. Now, how we classify this pollination? When the pollen grain is transferred to the stigmatic surface of each flower. Now, that only decides the type of the pollination. So that we are going to discuss in some of the few slides that are going to follow. So, flowering plants have evolved several adaptations to achieve pollination. As the gametes are non-motile, they depend upon external agents. Now, one very important point is that flowering plants have evolved several adaptations. Now, I will tell one thing, very beautiful statement in biology. For each and every plant in this world, there is a particular animal which is affecting the pollination. Each and every flower in this world has got its own bee, its own butterfly, its own grasshopper. Now, for a layman, it looks like as though any bee can bring about a pollination in any flower. No, it's not like that. It's not at all like that. A particular flower can be pollinated only by a particular bee. For example, when a bee is effecting a pollination, first it should find a place. It should have a landing surface. It comes and lands on a particular surface, and then it is getting ready to effect the pollination. Now, it will be effecting the pollination only if it is getting something in turn from the flower. So, what is this in turn from the flower? It should get some nectar, it should have some edible pollen, or it should be having some attractive thing The flower should be attractive to the butterflies. So any flower cannot attract any bee in this world, and the evolution of the flower and the evolution of the bees both have gone side by side, and this evolution has resulted in what is called as a co-evolution, a beautiful term in biology. When the flowers are evolving in a particular pattern, the bees are also, they have also undergone a lot of adaptations, changes, morphological adaptations to bring about the pollination in these flowers. Okay, so it's a very beautiful statement what is about the co-evolution. So flowering plants have evolved several adaptations to achieve pollination. As the gametes are non-motile, they depend on external agents. So these agents are very important. Now this plays a key role in the topic pollination. Anything could be a pollination. Why? Even a human being can be a pollinator. He could be an agent. He himself can be an. So mainly insects are doing the pollination. Sometimes the wind, sometimes the water, sometimes the higher animals, and even as I told you, human beings become the agents for the pollination. So broadly we classify these agents into biotic and abiotic. You know the meaning? When a living organism is involved in this pollination, you call it as a biotic. Bio means life. Wind, water, they are all involved in affecting the pollination. They become the agent. Now you are going to call it as abiotic. Abiotic means no life. Depending on the source of pollen, it can be divided into 3 types. See, beautiful slide. Now this is a flower. Yesterday itself I told you this is the sepal, petal, androecium, gynoecium. Now when the anther is maturing, it is impregnated with pollen grains. The pollen grains can no more remain in the anther. When a baby is developing in the womb of the mother, when it is reaching the full maturity, no more it can remain in the uterus of the mother. It has to come out. It has to come out. This is the law of the nature. Similarly, when the anther is impregnated with the pollen grains, it cannot remain there anymore. So it has to come out. Now, the dehiscence of the anther to liberate the pollen grain is what is called as anthesis. A beautiful term, anthesis. The dehiscence of the anther to liberate the pollen grain is called as anthesis. Now, when the pollen grains come out, they may land on the stigmatic surface of the very same flower. So, this is called autogamy or self-pollination. Now, there are certain advantages and disadvantages for the self-pollination. Okay. Now, the self-pollination can be in another way also. Now, it is taking place within the plant, one plant, but between another flower. So, the pollen grain from this flower may be deposited on the stigmatic surface of the other flower. Now, you know very well, genetically, when you get 2 flowers from in a same plant, their genetic makeup is very similar. So, that also we are going to call only as a self-pollination only. It amounts to the fact of a self-pollination because genetically there won't be too much of a variability between this flower and this flower because they are derived from the same parents. So here this is also autogamy, this is also autogamy, but it's a modified type of autogamy. So you call it as a type 1 and type 2. In type 1, the transfer of the pollen grain is taking place from the anther to the stigmatic surface of the very same flower. In type 2, the pollen grains from the anther of a particular flower is transferred to the stigmatic surface of the another flower of the same plant. That's very important. Okay, that looks good to you? Fine. Now, so pollination, as I was telling you, is divided into 2 categories: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is called, technically it's called an autogamy, and same flower. Now, it is also called as a heterogamy when it is taking place, when the pollination is taking place in the same plant but in a different flower. So once again, when it is autogamy, it is divided into chasmogamy and clistogamy. Chasmo means open. In Latin, chasmo means open, clisto means closed. Okay. Now, what is a chasmogamy? A flower which remains open throughout its lifetime is called a chasmogamy. That means most of the flowers that you are seeing is only chasmogamous flowers. When they are at bud, they remain closed, but then they open out. They open. Why should they open? To liberate the pollen grains, to receive the pollen grains. For all these purposes, the flowers should open out. So, 99% of the flowers that you are seeing are only chasmogamous flowers. But very rarely you get clistogamous flowers also. What is the meaning of the word clistogamous flowers? They remain closed throughout the lifetime. They never open. They never open. So that is called a clistogamy. Clisto means close. See, this is called clisto. Clisto means closed fist. Closed fist is called a clisto. So the result is called clistomania. Clisto means always a clear, closed. Say clistothecium. You get this word in fungus. A particular type of a fruiting body, when it is remaining completely closed, you call it as a clistothecium. So it's called a clistogamy, closed flowers. Now, cross-pollination, synogamy or oligamy, is divided into, once again, they are all covered by different agents, abiotic and abiotic. I was explaining this to you. Now, abiotic agents is called anemophily and hydrophily. Phily means love. See, anemophily, they are wind lovers. So, these flowers are wind lovers. Why they should love wind? Because they help in carrying the pollen grain to the stigmatic surface of another flower. See, when somebody is helping you, won't you love them? When somebody is helping you, naturally you will love them. So, these flowers are loving the wind, so they become anemophily. Now, when water is carrying the pollen grain, and then when it is when they are helping the pollen grains to reach the stigmatic surface, then the water becomes the agent. So it is called as hydrophily. I think there is a mistake here. It should be water. Here also they are given a wind, and here also they are given wind. Sorry, a small mistake has erupted. Okay, fine. So hydrophily is the transfer of a pollen grain by means of what is called as water. Biotic agents are entomophily, ornithophily, streptophily, malacophily, and firmicophily. Entomophily. What do you mean by entomophily? Entomo means insect. You know, when people are studying BSc agriculture or MSc agriculture in agricultural colleges, there is a separate department will be there, entomology, the study of insect. Why they should study insects when the people are studying agriculture? I know the insects are very important to bring about the pollination, for bringing about, they are responsible for bringing many diseases. Hundreds and hundreds of diseases are being brought about by the insects to the plants. So, in agriculture, they study, there is a separate department called entomology department. Entomology, entomo means insects. Ornitho, know the word ornitho? Ornitho means birds. Ornithologist. You know, in Pondicherry University, there is a separate department called Department of where they study about the birds, ornithology. You know, it's the best ornithologist, the name of the best ornithologist in the world, Salim Ali, you must be knowing. Salim Ali, it's the ecology department itself has been named after this great scientist called Salim Ali School of Ecology, they call. Because Salim Ali, even though he is born as an Indian, he has become an international figure. See, ornithology, those people who study about the birds, who do research on the birds, they're called ornithologists. See, ornitho means birds. So birds also help in the pollination. Chirapchirophily. Birds, they do a lot of pollination. Malaco. Malaco means snail because they will be, you could have seen different varieties of snails sticking on to the plants. So when the snail is moving from one part of the plant to the another part of the plant, they carry the pollen grains on their back and then they help in dusting over these pollen grains to the stigmatic surface, and then they help a lot to the plants in doing this pollination. So this is called as a malacophily. Myrmecophily, snails. Myrmecophily. Myrmecophily is a little bit different. It's called ant mostly. Mostly Myrmecophily is brought about by snail. Once again, I am sorry, a small mistake has come. Myrmecophily is mostly by ants. So entomophily, ornithophily, chiropterophily, malacophily, and myrmecophily. These are all the different biotic agents. Now, self-pollination, transfer of pollens from anther to the stigma of either same flower or another flower of the same plant. These are the two types called autogamy and heterogamy. Now, autogamy, as I was telling you, is the transfer of the pollen from to the stigma of the same flower of the same plant. Okay. So closely lying anther and stigma is broadly divided into, that's divided into three types. So plasmogamy, clistogamy, and homogamy. Now, for open flowers with exposed anthers and stigma, examples: viola, oxalis, Pomilina. Okay. So oxalis corniculata is the full name of the plant. Similarly, Pomilina bengalensis is the full name of the plant. Now it will be pinkish blue in color. It's a very beautiful plant. It is normally seen along with the grasses in the paddy fields. Along with the grasses, you will be able to see that. It's a very common plant. Pomilina bengalensis. Oxalis is also a common plant. Then Chasmum clistogamy, in this oxalis, viola and Pomilina, you get the clistogamous of flowers also. Now, the plant is a Pomilina plant is like this. This is the root system, and then you have got the plant like this. In this plant, you will be getting both the chasmogamous and the clistogamous flower. The chasmogamous flower will come, and then, as I was telling you, pinkish blue flowers will be produced here. Now, this is the soil surface. In the root, once again, clistogamous flowers will also be, they will be white in color, and they get buried in the soil. It will be seen in clusters. It won't be seen above the soil level. You have to plug the whole plant if you want to see these clistogamous flowers. They are rather white in color. They will be always in bud condition. They will never open. So this is a Pomilina bengalensis. This plant will be producing the clistogamous flowers and the chasmogamous flowers simultaneously. Then you have got a homogamy. Open flowers, anthers and stigma mature at the same time. They are brought closer together. Example, Mirabilis. Mirabilis jalapa is the full name of the plant. This plant you could have come across elsewhere. Can you try to catch up where you came across this plant? Mirabilis jalapa you come across in genetics. A very important plant. After monohybrid, the incomplete dominance by coherence, you come across this plant, Mirabilis jalapa. When a red variety crosses with a white variety, you get a pink variety in the F1 generation. A beautiful example. It's called the 4 o'clock plant. Then Vinca rosea, potato, that is a Solanum tuberosum. Then you've got a sunflower, Helianthus annis. So these flowers are very good examples of our homogamy. That means In these plants, the flower open the male sex, the anther and the stigma is the male sex organ and the female sex organ. It matures at the same time. When one is maturing first, then it is called as a protandry and protogyny. That we will be discussing a little bit later. See, violet plant with a normal flower and a clistogamous flower. So, clistogamous flower will be seen just below the soil level. It remains always closed, and then the normal one will be just outside. I think perhaps this is the plant which I was just now discussing, Pollination bengalensis, I think, because there the flower is a violet in color. Also telling you it's a pinkish violet. Fine. Now, bud pollination in the closed flowers, in the clistogamous flowers, mostly the pollination will be taking place only when it is a bud. So, anther and stigma mature before the opening of the flowers. Example: wheat, triticum, rice, Rhiza sativa, pea, Rhizum sativa. See, when I am reading the common name, simultaneously I am pronouncing the binomial also. It is for your benefit. Whenever you are seeing the English name or the common name on the board, and when I am pronouncing the binomial, please take down. So that is what is needed for a student at a higher secondary level. What is the wheat? The name wheat is known to even a 5th class student or a 6th class student. He knows what a wheat is. But what is expected of a +2 student? So you must know that the botanical name for the wheat is a triticum, and for the rice it is a rhiza, and for the pea it is a Rhizum sativa. That differentiates a +2 student from a 6th class student. So whenever the common name is there on the board, as far as possible, I will be giving the botanical name, the binomial also. Kindly note down, try to memorize, try to remember at least a few of them, then it becomes easy for you. Then, gametogamy. What is a gametogamy? The transfer of pollen from one flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. So, unisexual flowers with the male and female flowers in the same plant. Cocos and nucifera, coconut. You know, in the coconut palm, you have got the male flower and the female flower. Both of them will be in the same bunch. I don't know how many of you have seen. This is what is called as a spathy branch, or other words, a spathe. And then this is what is called as a spike. Then you have got a very small male flowers, preferably at the top, and then the female flowers at the bottom. Female flowers will be at the bottom. Few of them will be there, maybe 6 or 7, not more than that. Now here the transfer of pollen grain from here to here, it will take place. So hundreds of male flowers will be seen in each one. But of course, it is a compound spadix. Compound spadix, you will be getting a number of them will be there. Number of them will be there. Okay, it is like this. So just to play the coconut tree, if you go, the children are going for playing, you will be able to see 100 of male flowers just laying down. You can see it very easily. And some aborted, immature female flowers, they also fall down and then they look like this. Exactly like this size, this much size. In Tamil, it is called as a kurumbi. Okay, that's a female flower. They what is known as they have become aborted. They are not able to develop into a full-fledged fruit. They also fall down. So this completely not developed fruit, the male flowers, everything you will be able to see just below the coconut tree. So that's about the coconut. It's a beautiful example of a gametogamy. Advantages: more chances for pollination when it is within the same flower. So they need not depend on any agent. Okay. So the chances for the pollination is more in the case of plasmogamous flowers and also for the autogamous flowers. Because in the other one, if the agent is failing, then the marriage cannot take place between the two. So there the marriage is taking place only with the help of the agents, brokers. We call them in our local language as brokers. These brokers should be efficient. Otherwise, nothing is possible. So these are all the advantages. For the self-pollination, no agent is required. So more chances for the pollination. Maintenance of a purity of race and avoidance of a mixing. No necessity for a large number of pollens because there is no loss. No necessity for attracting pollinating agents. So no agent is required for this type of pollination. So, but at the same time, it has got some disadvantages also. What are the disadvantages of this pollination? That is a self-pollination. Weaker progeny are produced. Why? Because there is no mixing of the two different gametes. Whenever there is a mixing of two different energy, then the plant is producing more viable, more strong, more what is called as the plants which are of more disease resistant, and then it will be having all good qualities. So that is found to be missing in these plants. So the progeny produced are only weaker progeny after every generation, introducing depression. Then less chances of creation of new species and varieties when self-pollination is taking place. Some disadvantages are there. Now we are entering into another area of what is called as the cross-pollination, as I was remarking in my earlier few minutes back. Allogamy and xenogamy, and here agents are required for the pollination. What do you call these agents? They are the brokers. They bring the male unit in contact with the female unit, namely stigmatic surface, and below that you have got the ovary, inside the ovary you got the ovule, and as I was explaining in a very beautiful way in my yesterday's class, how the egg is present inside the ovule. You have got the integuments and the cell is egg apparatus, and in this egg apparatus you have got the egg. Now the male nucleus should finally fuse with this egg. How this is brought about? It is only because of these agents, and these agents we are going to divide into, as I have already told you, it's divided into biotic and abiotic. So this allogamy or the xenogamy is the transfer of the pollen to another flower of another plant or another species. So leads to outbreeding. It involves a transfer of a pollen from one flower to one plant to stigma of another plant. Another plant means automatically it is another flower. Another flower means another flower and another plant. Okay. Main floral characters facilitating the cross-pollination. This I am dividing into ergogamy, heterostyle, and then pollen prepotency. Like that, many factors are there. Protandry, protogyny. These are all some of the factors which are helping in the cross-pollination. See, what is ergogamy? In ergogamy, the two sex organs, namely the male sex organ and then the female sex organ, are separated by a distance. As a result, the pollen grain from that flower will not be finding a place on the stigmatic surface of the very same plant. Beautiful example is a Gloriosa superba. Unfortunately, I think we don't have a flower, but I will draw it. See, Gloriosa superba, I don't know how many of you have seen this flower, very beautiful flower it is. There will be 6 petals, and these 6 petals will be downwardly pointing here like this. Okay, fine. Now, these are the 6 stamens. These are the 6 stamens. Okay, right. Now, the stigma will be like this. Very interesting. It's a monocotyledonous plant, belong to the family Liliaceae. So the stigma is here, This is of course the ovary is, this is the ovary, style and stigma. The anthers are here. See, normally what happens, this will be the position in all the other flowers, but here it is like this. So this pollen grain will be having a least chance of fusing the best example, the best example for what is called as hercogamy. Hercogamy means there is a difference in the distance. Dichogamy is divided into two types, namely protandry and protogyny. Very easily you can understand these terms. Andry means andrecium, protandry means, and in a flower when the andrecium and the stamens are maturing first, it's called a protandry. Protogyny means when the gynoecium matures first, you call it as a protogyny. See, in protandry, the anthers will mature first and then it will be liberating all the pollen grains. So the pollen grains will come and then it will get mixed with the air and wind, and then it will get dispersed. It will go away from that area. So it will not be near that flower at all. Okay, and after 3 or 4 days, the stigmatic surface of that plant will come to sexual maturity. So the pollen from this flower will be having a least chance of fertilizing that particular, female sex organ of that flower. Now what happens in this case is a protogyny. The female sex organ matures first. So when the female sex organ matures first, it will receive the pollen grain, it will become the fruit, and afterwards only the anthers of this flower will mature. Now by the time it has already become a fruit, it has undergone fertilization, even a small fruit is formed. So this pollen grain is not going to have any effect on the stigmatic surface of that flower. And this pollen grain is not going to have any effect on this flower because there is a time difference. Last condition, hercogamy is a distance. Here it is a time difference. Minimum 2 to 3 days difference will be there between the maturity of the male and the female sex organ. Okay. So that is what is called as a dichogamy, and you have got a beautiful examples for both these categories. You have got a protogyny, example is Aristolochia, and then Bajra. Bajra, I think it's called Corsa Venus, Bajra. It's one of the grain, perhaps it is called as a penicitum. Penicitum is the local name or the common name is Bajra. Then maize, you have got as an example for the protandry. The botanical name is also mostly like that, but the spelling is a little bit different. It is maize, zea maize, called as a zea maize. Zea maize. This is a binomial for the maize. It's called as zea maize. Okay, right. Self-incompatibility is a beautiful mechanism for preventing the self-pollination and for promoting the cross-pollination. What is called a self-incompatibility? See, this is a flower and this is the female sex organ, this is the male sex organ. Now, if the pollen grain from this anther is dusted over the stigmatic surface of this flower, then the pollen grain will not have any effect. It will not have any effect. This pollen grain will not be able to bring about any germination at all. Okay. So this is what is called as a self-incompatibility. You can understand the term very easily. Compatibility means it is going in. Complete understanding is there. Incompatibility means no understanding. Self-incompatibility, there is no understanding between the male sex organ and then the female sex organ belonging to the same flower. So by this, the nature is able to prevent the self-pollination as far as possible. Pollen fails to bring out self-pollination. Pollen grains or pollen tube growth inhibited. Only cross-pollination. See, how this is brought about, it's all brought about by genetic mechanism. You have got what is known as a stigmatic environment. This is what is called as a stigmatic environment. This stigmatic environment is genetically controlled and it recognizes a right pollen and a wrong pollen. I'm going to discuss this in a detailed way in some of the slides which we are going to get after some time. See, a stigma understands which is its own pollen and which pollen it has got from some other plant, some other species. So this is what I mean by right pollen and wrong pollen. So which pollen it should admit for germination, it decides. So this is brought about by a genetic factor. Then what is called a male selective. Pollen of some plants are not their function. That means the flower, the pollen grain from one flower, when it is deposited on the stigmatics of the very same flower, they become non-functional. They set seeds only after cross-fertilization or cross-pollination. Fine. Dioecious or dioecium. Dioecious means here in a dioecious plant the cross-pollination is only a rule, because here the male flower and the female flower is a separate. I mean the plant itself is a separate. One very good example is a papaya. They have given papaya. So papaya is a very good example where you have got a male papaya and then the female papaya. So the male papaya produces the male inflorescence and then the female papaya produces the female inflorescence. So here self-pollination is a completely totally ruled out. Some of the cooker bits also come under this category. One more very beautiful example of a dioecious plant is a borassus. Palm tree. We call in Tamil as a panamaram. You have got a male palmyra and a female palmyra. Aan panai, pen panai. You have got two different. See, in the same borassus, the same palmyra tree, you don't get the male flower and then the female flower. So when the plant and the tree itself is different as a male flower and a female flower, then cross-pollination becomes a rule. Heterostyle is another beautiful mechanism for affecting the cross-pollination. I will explain to you what this is. See, a very rough diagram I am just drawing to explain heterostyle. This is two flowers belonging to the same species. Now in one flower, this is the length of the gynoecium. To this length in another flower, the androecium will be there. Okay? Right. Now in this flower, this is the length of the androecium. To this length, gynoecium will be there. Now you see, the cross-pollination becomes easier than the self-pollination. The pollen grains from this one will be able to reach this stigmatic surface, and this one will be able to reach this one more successfully. So cross-pollination becomes more easier, and then self-pollination. Now, you may be raising a doubt at this occasion, sir. The flowers are born in a different direction in the plant. How is that the pollen grains are traveling in a straight line to reach the flower? This is possible. This we have drawn only a diagram, but in nature, how this is taking place? You have to understand that this type of pollination is taking place not by the wind but by the insect. Okay. Now, when an insect is coming and visiting this flower, what happens? This particular portion is getting dusted with the pollen grain, and when it is reaching or visiting this flower, this portion will come in contact with this, and then it is getting the fertilization. So here it is mostly done with the help of the insects. So heterostyle is a beautiful mechanism for cross-pollination when it is taking place by the insects. All of them will be coming under what is called as insect pollinated flowers. So now I am dividing the pollination into abiotic and abiotic. These I think we have already discussed. Let me proceed to the next slide. types of a pollination. See, pollination by water is only very little, very little, very little. Pollination by animal, wind is also not that much. Pollination by organism, particularly by the insect, is 80%. I think I have told you in another occasion where, see, if all the bees, if all the insects are going to be eliminated from, if all of them are going, no problem. If all the insects are going to be eliminated from this world, then what will happen? It will the whole animals they will come to a standstill. They were telling.
பரவாயில்ல சார், நான் இதை வச்சு மேனேஜ் பண்ணிப்பேன். இதில் வாய்ஸ் ரெக்கார்டு ஓடிட்டேன்.
Right. So this insect pollination is very effective in the case of the organisms. Now, anemophily, as I was telling you, it's a way of pollination. Phily means love. Transfer of pollen from anther to stigma. Flowers are called anemophilous. Now, they are characterized by the flowers are small. They need not be showy. They need not be very big. They need not be attractive because wind is not getting attracted by anything else. So they can be colorless. They need not be colorful. They are inconspicuous. They are very small but clustered in the form of an inflorescence. They are odorless and they are nectarless. Now, calyx and corolla reduce to absent because they will be produced because when there is a wind, the stigma will be able to receive the pollen grains very easily. So the corolla and the calyx are absent. Anthers versatile. Now, what do you mean by versatile anther? See, this is the filament. When the anther is in this method, it is called versatile. Versatile means that which will be able to move in all directions. That which will be able to move in all. You could have come across this word. You call a boy or a girl is a versatile genius. When she is he or she is the all-rounder, you call her as a versatile genius. So versatile means turning in all directions. That's the meaning of that word. So in bisexual flowers, the stamens are numerous. In unisexual ones, the male flowers are more abundant. Pollen grains small, dry, and sometimes weightless, so that they are blown away to longer distances. Flowers produce huge quantities of pollen grains. Single flowers of cannabis, you see, 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs pollen. One flower is able to produce 5 lakhs, the unimaginable number. See, when the whole plant is becoming or coming to the maturity stage, will be what is called as a pollen cloud. In some plants it happens. There will be a cloud of pollen grains moving from one area to another area. This you see in the pinus and some of the gymnosperms also, pollen cloud. So they will be forming a cloud. To that extent, the pollen grains are produced in huge quantities when it has to be pollinated by the wind. Flowers, once again, some more characters. The flowers are well exposed to air, produced above the foliage before appearance of the new leaves, because when new leaves have come, what will happen? They will be hindering. They will be the pollen grains cannot move very freely to reach the pollen to stigmatic surface. So when the stigma is only exposed, the pollen grains will be able to reach the stigmatic surface in an efficient way. So before the appearance of the new foliage, the pollination will be over in all these wind pollinated flowers. Stigmas are large, well exposed, hairy, feathery, or branched to catch the airborne pollens. See, sometimes you get, I'm just drawing the diagram of this is the gynoecium of the paddy flower, beautiful flower. See, This is what is called as a feathery stigma. Why it should have a feathery stigma? To receive the pollen grains, you just compare this stigma to this stigma. When the stigma is in this way, how a pollen grain will come and sit over that to produce a pollen tube? No, it's not at all possible. Not possible. Whereas here, the pollen grains will come and cling to the feathery nature. Then they will be able to bring about the pollen tube very fast. So, hairy stigma, feathery stigma, bifid feathery stigma is the characteristic feature for the family Poaceae, in which we are getting mostly all the grains, the agricultural crops. Okay, fine. So in some plants, anthers suddenly throw pollen into the air. There is a gunpowder mechanism. Common examples are grasses. As I was telling you, most of these plants are coming under the Gramineae family, Poaceae family. And most of the agricultural crops are coming under this category, because when a crop is agriculture, an insect, any number of insects will not be able to do this function. Even if millions of insects are coming, then it becomes impossible. So air will be, or wind will be able to do this work very efficiently when compared to the insects. So bamboo, coconuts, palm, the Brassus flabellifera, then Phoenix dactylifera, that date palm. The botanical name is Phoenix dactylifera, maize, Ziamase. So in all these plants, these are all the very good examples of what is called as wind pollinating plants. Fine. Hydrophily. Hydrophily means what? When the pollination is taking place with the help of the water, you call it as a hydrophily. Once again, that is divided into two types, namely hypohydrophily and epihydrophily. Hypohydrophily means when pollination is taking place below the water, hypo means below, and when it is taking above the water, is called epihydrophily. Best examples are hypohydrophily is a Ceratophyllum, this is a water plant. Okay, and then see two hydrophilous flowers. They occur in submerged plants. They live below the soil level. Below the water level. So they become the hypohydrophily. Male flowers bear 30 to 40 stamens. Mature anthers break at the base, rise to the surface, and dehisces there. Liberated pollen grains germinate, and while sinking in water, they come in contact with the stigma of a female flower to effect pollination. So the real pollination is taking place below the water. Then Zostera marina, the seagrass, marine species, pollen elongated and then ribbon-like without axon. Because of the same specific gravity as that of water, they float below water surface. Once they reach stigma, they coil around it and germinate. Pollens are protected from wetting and mucilaginous covering. So these are all some of the examples for hypohydrophily. Now we have come to what is called as epihydrophily. So the very good examples are, in epihydrophily, the pollination is brought about by insects. Once again, real pollination is brought about by insects. They are water plants, of course. Epihydrophily, Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Best example. In Vallisneria, the female flower has a long coiled stalk. Of course, Vallisneria, and they are all dioecious plants. In fact, they come to the surface by uncoiling stalk, and the pollens are released from the male flowers. Underneath, they come to the surface of the water. They reach the female flowers by water current, and the pollen reach the stigma. See how it is taking place in Vallisneria. You have got this is the female flower. It has got 3 petals, 3 sepals. These are the stamens. These are the stamens. Male flower. This is the ovary. Male flowers, they protrude the anthers like this. By some sort of a water force, they call it a surface tension. And because of this surface tension, the male flowers are attracted towards the female flower. A small depression will be there where the female flower is there, and in this by the water current in this depression, all the male flowers will come and then get collected surrounding that female flower, and when they come near, after coming near this, these anther lobes will is open, and then the pollen grains will come out, and then these stigmatic surface they receive the pollen grains. A very beautiful mechanism of pollination in the case of Vallisneria. Entomophily, there's a pollination taking place with the help of the insects. As I was describing, the 80% of the pollination is only because of the bees. They are the chief visitors in animal pollination. Entomo means insect. Important insects are the bees, butterflies, moths, wasps. Sorry, there is a spelling mistake, not wasps. Wasps and beetles, ants, birds, sunbirds, and hummingbirds. Insects visit flowers for nectar, edible pollen grains, and shelter. These are all the characters. Bees are the chief visitors, and they obtain nectar, so they will be the nectar secreting flowers, most of them. If they don't have nectar, they will be producing what is called as an edible pollen. So the insects get attracted by the edible pollen. Sometimes they offer shelter, landing surface, platform. Some flowers give landing surface for them. Then for some of the insects, they give pollen baskets and packets. So they give some gifts to the insects which are visiting. See, only if you are getting some gift, you will be very happy. Similarly, the flowers also give some gift pack to the insects so that they will easily come and then help in the pollination. Even larger animals such as some primates, the lemur, then arboreal rodents, which are tree dwelling, or reptiles, they also help in the pollination. Important characteristics are the characteristic features of these plants are they produce a large flowers. Why they produce a large flowers? Because they have to attract the bees, they have to attract the insects. For that purpose, they are large flowers. And when they are grouped, when they are very small, they are grouped into inflorescence. Brightly colored flowers with a specific odor. Sometimes some insects are attracted by some odor. It may not be always a pleasant odor. Insects are attracted by even bad odor. You know the housefly, how it is getting attracted. It is getting attracted only by a bad odor. So it all depends. So we only call it a good odor and bad odor. But for the insects, there is nothing like that for the good odor and bad odor. A particular insect will be attracted to a particular odor. That's all. Okay. Nectar or edible pollen in flowers or rewards. Flowers, they flower. Fewer pollen grains will be there, not more as in the case of Anemophilus. Then the inserted anthers and their stigmas. Usually they are unbranched stigmas. They may be flat or lobed. Often animal pollinated flowers are specifically adapted for a particular animal species. As at this point only I was telling in the very beginning, see, each and every flower in this world has got its own insect. It's not that any flower can be pollinated by any insect. It's not at all like that. A particular flower needs a particular insect for the pollination. Providing safe place for laying eggs. The tallest inflorescence is 6 feet in the case of the Amorphophallus campanulensis and Amorphophallus titanum. So many species are there in Amorphophallus, belong to the family Aroideae, a beautiful family. Mutual relationship between the Heuca and the moth. So there is some sort of relationship is exhibiting between the flower and then the insect. And then the life cycle of the insect will not be completed if it is not getting that particular flower. So the flower is getting the help for pollination. The insect is also able to complete the life cycle with the help of the flower. So there is a perfect understanding between the flower and then the insect. This is what I was mentioning in the first itself as a co-evolution. Larvae of a moth come out of egg when seeds started germinating. Now, why when you cut open certain fruits, you get worms coming out of it? So, The fruit is there undisturbed. Nobody has cut the fruit so till this time. The first time you are cutting a fruit and then you see the worms wriggling out. Now we understand how these worms have gone inside. These worms have gone inside even before the flower. I mean, when the flower is before this flower is becoming the fruit. Fine. Here, a comparison between the animophilia and entomophilia. I think I have given you a lot of information about this. So I am just reading out. Flowers are small and inconspicuous. They are big and showy. No nectar. Nectar is producing. Petals reduced and absent. They are big and petals are colorful. Inflorescence with many flowers. A few flowers are there. They are large and exposed stamens. The inserted stamens there. Long and feathery stigma. No such stigmas are there. Flowers unisexual. Flowers bisexual there. Pollen produced in large quantities. But here pollen is produced only in small quantities. Here light and dry pollen. Here the pollens are sticky and heavier. Pollination is not specialized, whereas here pollination is specialized. Then typical of a phagales, and here is a majority of the flowering plants. See a beautiful photography of how an insect is pollinating a sunflower. Very nice photography. How it is able to bring about a pollination here. The coexistence, the co-evolution of a bee and a inflorescence. When the flowers are very small, they are aggregated to become the inflorescence. I was describing this in one of my slides. See how this is how a particular flower is being pollinated by a bat, Streptophila. I was describing to you. See here they are attracted by the smell of the flower. This I was telling you. The flower need not be always producing very pleasant odor. We only call it a pleasant odor. Sometimes the animals are attracted by the obnoxious odor. Okay. So this flower is not that much odorous. It's not producing pleasant smell, but still bats are attracted by that. That's the difference between man and animal. Now, this is a beautiful slide showing the pollination taking place in a plant called Salvia, Salvia leucantha, Salvia rubra. Many species of salvias are there. Very common plant in Uti and Kodaikanal. See, here there will be four stamens will be there, two shorter and two longer. And then it acts in as a sort of a liver mechanism. When the insects they go and thrust their head. Now this will strike at the abdomen. This will strike on the abdomen of the bees, and then now the abdomen will be packed with the pollen grains. When this bee is visiting the another flower, then the stigma will come in contact with the pollen grains, and then the pollination is effected. So it's a beautiful mechanism of a liver mechanism by which the pollination is taking place in the flowers. Now that gives you a very clear picture of how plants, how the flowers are getting pollinated by the different type of agents, namely insect, wind and other organisms. Now I was telling you in the very beginning that pollination is one of the very fascinating topic, one of the very fascinating topics in botany. See, as I was telling you, a male flower and a female flower, when they are existing, a male flower cannot go near a female flower and then tell his love towards the female flower. It's not possible. They have not specialized it to that extent as the man is doing. So some agents should be able to do that. Nature, it has done this wonderful job of bringing these two units together with the help of many agents. So people who are interested in knowing more about the pollination, just click and then you go. Beautiful photographies of pollination you will be able to see how really it is taking place in nature. So these are things we see and admire rather than by seeing the theoretical portion of it. Okay, fine. That gives you a good idea about what is called as a pollination. Thank you.